All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best Self Blueprint. So, everyone who tunes in knows at this point that the mission of this podcast is to bring on people with the knowledge, insights, and experiences that'll help you move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. So, before we get started, again, I'm just going to give the whole spiel of if you like this video, that's why there's a like button. If you think anything that we talk about in this video could benefit someone in your life, that's why there's a share button. And anything that we say that you have a comment on, question about, agree with, disagree with, that's why there's a comment section. So use those things. But now to introduce the guest. So this next guest is an exercise science and psychology specialist with 20 years of coaching experience on a mission to inspire communities to lead a healthy and fulfilled life. His vision is to create a world full of wellness, peace, and self-worth by redesigning and reinventing what it means to be an athlete physically and mentally at any age, which I love that. He's currently coaching high-level performance athletes and professionals with one of the largest luxury fitness brands in the nation and is proud to have created over 400 fitness and mindset transformations throughout his career. So I am very excited for you all to meet Vincent Dangerfield. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How are you, sir?
I am fantastic, and I am very excited to talk to you. I mean, anyone with 20 years of experience obviously has a few gold nuggets, but what I want to touch on first is that any age portion of what you were talking to me about is that's something that I really dig deep into with people is the long-term functionality of fitness and just overall health in general. What are a few things that you see people missing kind of overall, generally, most commonly that prevents them from creating and setting up a sustainable, long-term, healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I love diving right into it. So just to set a little bit more context around the age part. So I'm only 30 years of age. So that means that I've been coaching since I was 10. And so the age part is so important to me because I was given such a high level of responsibility and trust because in Taekwondo, which is where that was like my very first sport in Taekwondo, regardless of your age, it's all based on rank. So by the age of 10, I had my black belt. And so I was expected to start coaching and training and instructing classes for people who were either my age, right? So there's another 10-year-old, but he or she might have been a white belt, or somebody who's a green belt and they're like 60, 70 years old. Like I technically was even coaching and instructing my grandpa, and he had his yellow belt. And so it was really funny to have to listen to him call me sir and Mr. Dangerfield when, the roles reverse when you go home and you're like, yes, sir. Yes, grandpa, it was just really funny. And so I've just honestly taken that principle that regardless of any age, you can always learn from somebody, right? And B, regardless of what age you say you are, and I'll get back to that, you can really truly accomplish whatever you desire. So I rarely, and I still catch myself, but I rarely say that I'm 30 years old because I'm again, just kind of like what we were already talking about is that I'm a huge believer on mindset. And so typically when we hear the term old, it's referred to like an old car, right? We think of like rusty, it's immobile, it's rickety, right? Like it's not trusting, there's something wrong with it, right? And so just because we have that connotation around it, we start limiting ourselves. So just like in Spanish, I butcher it, I feel like, but when you ask ¿cuántos años tienes? Like how many years do you have, right? It's acknowledging that you have experience. It's acknowledging that there is something to be learned from, or something to really even aspire to be, right? Like a lot of people try to avoid being quote unquote older, right? It's like, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to age, because I know with age will come wisdom and experiences that I can now also instill onto other people. So I think to your question, setting that context, I think the biggest thing that people are missing is, if anything, having unlimited beliefs. So what I mean by that is that people tend to limit themselves too much. So one of my coaching principles within the fitness side of things is that I'm constantly looking at people's range of motion or their strength or their kinetic potential, like those sorts of things. And more often than not, if they have a limited range of motion, it is pretty simple, fair to say, and there's a high correlation that they have a fixed mindset around something else that they're doing. So that would be the biggest thing that I feel like I've seen and recognize that people are missing, is an unlimited and infinite mindset, a growth mindset, versus having a limited and fixed one.
Man, you started this off with a bang. There is a lot of good stuff in there. So, okay, the first thing that I want to touch on is I absolutely love that ideology of it's not about how old you are, it's about your experience. So that's something that I was very humbled by very early on, is I had these clients who were far more financially successful than me, had far more life experience than me, but in the domain that I've mastered, I was the sir, right? Like I was kind of that go-to guy. And it's something that I think people need to adopt is, like you said, you can learn from everyone. There is somebody on this planet who knows more than you in just about every area of life, but you also know more about your experiences, your knowledge, your philosophies than anyone else. And so you have that light to shine on. But so that's the first thing. I think that's phenomenal. You can learn from everybody. And it's important as well to really audit who you're getting your advice from in that context, because I think there's a common practice of just asking your good friends advice on everything. And as well-intentioned as they may be, there's probably an educated, experienced human being out there who would be far better to ask. So I wanted to start with that. But what I want to move into is growth mindset. And I've actually never really thought about this idea of kind of the more like free flowing your physical body is, and the more you're able to express that movement freely and not like you were talking about, kind of like rusted and immobilized. I've never really thought of that correlation between the two, but it's fascinating to think about, because really you think about like the free spirited people tend to be people who practice yoga, Tai Chi, even like stuff like rock climbing, where you are very like mobile and mindful. And that's a fascinating concept. So I really like that. But what are your few ways? Let's say you're starting to work with someone on the physical side, right? Increase their range of motion, increase their balance, increase their mind body awareness. What are some things you do more on like the emotional or psychological side to start to open them up to a growth mindset?
Yeah, that's also a super great question. So first off, we personally have access to this incredible piece of technology called Dari motion capture. And so we're able to take objective data and show our clients, show our athletes that they really truly have a fixed range of motion, whether that's in their shoulder, their hip, their knee, their upper, lower spine, whatever it is. So more often than not, we don't know what we don't know, right? You're just even talking about like, oh, I didn't like think about like seeing that correlation, right? And I also would say 2 years ago, I wasn't also thinking in that same manner or same perspective either. But until I started discovering, doing more research, having new access to resources, I start recognizing that. So going back though, when I'm showing them this objective data, it's not subjective. And I feel like for the most part, for somebody to be truly open to something, it can't just come across from like your friend, right? Like it's very subjective. Like they're going to tell you what you want to hear, or they're only going to be able to support you so much. Same thing, like, we're more willing to take advice from somebody that we've paid professionally than like our own mom and dad or something like that. You know what I mean? Just because of that relationship. And so I think the very first thing about shifting them into that growth mindset is looking at the objectivity. It's like a lot of people also pretend not to know, right? It's like, oh, my shoulder's fine. It's like, no, it shouldn't be clicking like that, you know? It's like, man, my back is always tight. It's like, I don't know why, but it's like, I just take some ibuprofen and I'm good. It's like, that's not meant to be the thing, And so a lot of people pretend not to know. So I think just showing people, first off, objective data, where it's not just like from my perspective, it's, again, something that we can truly measure. So just painting that picture first off, and then I like to create some analogies. So did you ever play baseball?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Same here. I would say I think I've played like 8 sports now or something like that. But pretty diverse athlete. So I've been able to also kind of take these lessons and everything. And I'm sure you've heard it. Everybody probably who has ever played baseball in their life has heard their coach say, loosen up on the bat. Right. And so I use this analogy because more often than not, people grip so hard on the bat trying to create a result that when they get that perfect pitch, they are swinging and trying so hard to make that result happen that they still end up missing. And so that shows and demonstrates what a fixed mindset could do to us. If we're trying to control something and if we're trying to manipulate it and we're trying to force it, it's not going to happen. We have to be fluid. We have to have a smooth trajectory to it. We have to be able to trust ourselves. We have to loosen up the grip. And more often than not, we're going to actually make that contact because it's not about force. It's about the finesse to it, right? Rock climbing isn't about being real rigid. It's a finesse. It's a dance. If you truly watch some of the best climbers out there, it looks like they're literally dancing with the wall or with the rocks, with the formation. And so if I can just even paint these pictures for these guys, they start becoming a little bit more aware of these things that are missing for them. And now they start becoming hungry. I can't lead a horse to water and make him drink. However, one of my mentors told me, he goes, Vinnie, if you give that horse a salt lick, they're going to be thirsty and they're going to have to drink. And so when I'm painting these pictures for my clients and my athletes, is that I'm trying to get them hungry enough or thirsty enough or open enough to receive this information so that way we can start breaking these limiting beliefs or these fixed mindsets or these fixed perspectives so that way we can really truly translate that energy, because that's all it is. It's just energy. It's mental energy into now the physical.
Yeah. So this is something I've actually been thinking a lot about. First of all, I'm a man of analogies too. So you are quite literally speaking my language with that, but
it sounds like we're in such good company.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This will definitely continue beyond when this stops recording, but
yeah, cool.
The thing that you're touching on that I really have thought deeply on is this balancing act, if you will, between obviously you do need to put forth effort in life. You can't just say, oh, I want to be a millionaire and have 6-pack abs. And then all of a sudden, like, you're like, all right, just let the universe flow and it'll happen. But what I've come to realize is like what you're talking about. It's this emotional surrender to what will be without losing the focus on, like, you need to put in your effort. You need to put in the right attitude. You need to have the right focus. And then you need to have the right environment. So those are kind of the 4 things I feel like I almost think about. If we're hitting analogies, I think about the horse and the jockey. The horse is the one who's really like pushing it. But if the jockey falls asleep, he's getting kicked off pretty dang hard. So you need to be the jockey on the horse. Let the universe, reality, whatever you want to call it, flow and do what it needs to do, but be in control enough and aware enough to still do what you need to do to course correct, right? And so I'm curious, what is your kind of balancing act between, and I know you're talking about it is finesse, and it's probably different for everybody that you talk with, but maybe even for you personally, what is your balancing act between, there are things you do need to stay on top of and stay disciplined about, but there are infinitely more things that you need to just let flow and let happen in the process that they're meant to.
So there's two things I would say to that. Is one, trusting yourself. So what do I mean by that? That it's very challenging to think about, like, okay, well, I believe in myself, and I can do whatever I say I want to do. Sure, yes. However, nothing's perfect. And so in those moments where doubt creeps in, we have to fall back on where the truth or the evidence lies the most. And so more often than not, a lot of the people who I've coached or trained or even supported through their injuries and whatnot, they don't have enough evidence, or at least they think they don't. Because again, they're only thinking in one domain. They're only thinking in one dimension of, like, okay, well, I don't have enough evidence in my health and fitness, so I can't lose the weight. I've always been the skinny guy. I've always been slow, or I've never felt pretty enough, or whatever the case is, right? They're only measuring their success in one domain, as opposed to looking for all the other evidence in other domains of their life. I coach on how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if going back to, if you have a fixed range of motion, you have a fixed mindset, right? Same thing. Now, if you have a successful experience in one domain, it's probably that you're creating success in another. So if people think that they're successful in their career, well, then, like, let's leverage that. Or if you have an incredible loving family experience, then let's leverage that. And now when we start looking at these pieces of evidence and they start building up this conclusive, this objective piece of data, they end up believing in themselves that much more. And thus they can trust themselves to be able to overcome any challenge, obstacle, barrier, situation, or circumstance that comes up in their way. The second thing to your question, I would say, is going to be I almost had it. Oh man, where's it going? Trevor, I lost it. It was so good. It was so good. It was fleeting. It was so fast.
The first one was good though.
We could just stick with that one. That's fine. I'll stick with that one. Trust in yourself, honestly, man. I honestly, that's it, right? Like, I thought I had the second answer. And you know what? We'll just stick with the first one.
Trust it.
I'll take my own coaching.
No,
it'll probably come back to me here in a little bit, buddy.
No, that's phenomenal. And it's so true. What you focus on grows, right? And if you don't use it, you lose it. It's kind of those two ideologies working in synchronicity, where if you're focused on the, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve it, I'm limited in this area, well, you're planting a heck of a lot of seeds in that garden, and that's what's going to grow. And at the same time, if you aren't using that mindset of, no, wait, here is all that evidence that I am worthy and I do deserve it and I am an unlimited, abundant being, well, then you're going to lose that temporarily, not forever. Don't worry, anyone who is feeling that way. But that's where it's so important to get in front of someone, even if they're just acting as a soundboard, so that you can start thinking and getting that wheel turning of, wait, I remember that one time where this did actually work out, or it did, happen for me, or like what you're talking about, where just pick that one area of your life where you feel great about it and just dissect it a little bit. Just see what you did in that area to create that success, and then see what parts of that you can use to emulate in other areas to start getting what I call big mo, get that momentum going, right? And so that's where I really like what you're talking about, where it's, you can double dip, triple dip. Life is not that person at the party who's going to smack the chip out of your hand. You can dip as many times as you want, go for the salsa, but you have to be willing to analyze it, right? Like you're talking about, this quantifiable data, this objective pattern recognition is so important when it comes to varying these success patterns.
Yeah, I think so. I do remember now where I was going with this. Going back to like what you're talking about, man. a lot of people use the subjective, which then they start beating themselves up, right? Which is like, I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable, I don't deserve this, all of that. That's subjective, right? The objective is the truth. That's the undeniable truth. And so what I think is missing still sometimes for people is that they focus on the reaction rather than the response. So they're lacking responsibility. If we break down the word responsible, it just simply translates into able to respond. If we look at like an EMT, an emergency medical responder, EMR, they're showing up to an emergency ready to respond. They're not reacting frantically. They're not like hustling and bustling. They're trusting themselves on like, okay, cool, this is what's going on. I've done this before. Even if it looks different every single time, I fall back to what I know, and this is how I'm able to respond. And so I think that moving forward, people just get to practice being responsible with their health, their fitness, their relationships, their career, whatever it is, as opposed to being reactionary.
Yeah. So this is something, it's so weird that we're talking about this. I was just yesterday having a very deep conversation with someone about this idea of, it's as simple as allowing that creation of a barrier between your knee-jerk emotional reaction to something and how you actually respond to that thing. And so that's something that I pride myself on, is I've, for the most part, always room to improve, definitely challenges pop up, but I pride myself on that ability to, even if something does trigger my emotional response or it stirs me up, I have this gap now where I've conditioned my mind where as soon as that trigger hits, I've actually conditioned myself to pause, retract, think about, okay, what about that actually is making me get stirred up? And then you switch over to that, what you're talking about, that like objective, logical mind of, okay, what was actually said? What was the actual intention? And is this actually a valid response to get like emotionally charged? 99.9% of the time, it is totally invalid. And so it's then kind of like almost like book tabbing that reaction, giving the actually responsible response to what happened, and then later going back and actually really taking a second thinking, no, let's work through this now. Like, now that we're out of that emotional state, what was that about? Why did that trigger me? What can I do to work on that? And so I think that's something that a lot of people should put some eggs in the basket of practicing, is how do you create that gap? And for me, a big part of it is you seem to always feel it in your body before you know it in your mind. Like your chest gets tight or your face gets warm, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I'm mad, or like, oh crap, I'm anxious. But your body will feel it and try to signal to you like, pause, 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 pause. Don't say anything stupid. Don't do anything stupid. And so if you can start to, when you feel those things, think about where you're feeling it in your body and use that as that almost like alert to say, all right, let's step back and think about this before we say or do something we're not going to be happy with 5 seconds later.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I think it takes humility to recognize that, for sure. Like, and I think humility and hunger kind of, like we were talking about, kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Like, we have to recognize and be humble enough to even realize, like, even us as fitness professionals who are coaching people into their highest version of themselves possible, and health professionals, that we're not perfect either, right? And so I think there gets to be some discernment as well, to be able to recognize when, oh shit, I'm getting a little frustrated here, you know, and give ourselves permission to be frustrated with that, and then shift back into, okay, cool, like I let my temper get the best of me. I let my previous experiences, because it's typically like past programming, you know, through childhood and whatnot, that elicited that response, but that's the reaction, right? It's a program. It's just like doing obstacles. You don't really have to think about it, right? You just go with it, right? You're swinging through it. But if we want to get better, we have to slow down and stop and pause and analyze it and be like, oh, actually, I missed that transition. Or, oh man, I actually lost my momentum. I like that big mo. That's sweet. I lost that big mo. And that cost me 5 seconds on my time or something like that. So I think there gets to be that discernment, that heightened awareness, that ability to take a step back and really truly be like, okay, cool. What about me gets the shift?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just to kind of, at least in my head, try to start to like kind of tie the bow on what we've been talking about. It comes down to generate the momentum through, if you don't know how to do that, just go listen to what we just talked about. It gives you a lot of ideas. Generate that momentum, keep it going. And when you lose it or you can't seem to find it, pattern recognition, look at what's working, look at what's not, get objective. If you need to hire a coach, if you need to talk to an educated, experienced friend, get that soundboard, get that advice, and just keep rolling through. Let Big Mo work for you. And again, use that finesse, right? In every part of your life, put in your effort that you need to create the attitude and the physiology in yourself that's, required to really live in that grateful, high vibe reality. But that's what it's all about. And that everything that we've talked about up until this point can be applied to everyone in every area of life. So
100%.
Yeah. So I absolutely love that. But we're going to get into something that I want to talk about just because I want to talk about it.
Fair.
Superheroes. So this is something we were talking about right before we hopped on. I love superheroes. That is kind of my like selfish ambition in life, is I want to be known as basically a superhero. That's kind of I know, like you were talking about, you love Marvel and kind of like the ideas that are brought up within it. I'm going to lay down why I like it, and then I'm going to let you talk about why you like it. But for me, I think about more than anything like Captain America. Yeah, he's badass. He can, throw his shield and bank it off like 20 trees and then catch it perfectly doing a backflip. And the physical ability is phenomenal. And that's something that I really strive for. Is just today I was telling one of my friends in the gym, I want to be able to lift with the big guys, run with the little guys, and stretch with the yogis. I just want to have kind of that very well-rounded athleticism that you think of a superhero. You think of them as strong, fast, mobile, agile, but they don't use that for, prideful purposes. They use it so that they can better help other people and they can inspire and set an example. And that to me is why I really love it. Is there are these people, these gods even, who they have such insane physical ability, and yet they're so focused on the betterment of other people. And I think that is so useful and so applicable to real life. Now, obviously, I don't foresee myself being able to like catch a bus on the highway or have lightning shoot out of my hands unless I get hit with lightning. But I just really love kind of those key concepts that can be applied to really pursuing that best version of yourself, which is your own version of a superhero.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your take
agree. First off, I completely agree.
So let's hear it. What's your fascination?
Yeah, man. So a couple things to that. Definitely love Captain America also. I could go and get my shield right now just to prove it if you guys need to, but trust me on that. Absolutely love Captain America. And I think if anybody actually is following Marvel and everything, and Sam Wilson is now carrying the Captain America, spoiler, if you guys haven't been watching it, you need to catch up clearly, but he's now carrying the Captain America mantle. And I think that in and of itself is powerful, is that anyone can rise to that occasion. And so I think it's truly, truly inspiring. Even I love etymology. And so like, if we look even at the root of inspiration, in spirit, right? So those characters are inspiring us. They're bringing out the authenticity, the highest version of ourselves, just like you said, man. And it truly just shows us what's possible. Yeah, you know, like you said, you're not going to be maybe catching a bus. However, how strong can we become? How much can I step outside of my comfort zone? Am I willing to do the things that others aren't? Am I willing to stand up for something that I truly believe in, even though others don't support me? And I really do love the ability to serve others too. There's a lot of hurt people out there. And unfortunately, hurt people. And it is really, truly satisfying knowing that there's still like hope, because there's like truly a lot of turmoil. And you know, like I've had bouts, like existential crises almost, in a way where like I feel almost like just lethargic, like immobile, like just overwhelmed, anxious, because I just thought of like, oh my gosh, there's so much that needs to be done in this world. Like, how are we going to get this all done? You know what I mean? But how do you eat a watermelon? One bite at a time. So these superheroes, these people that I've looked up to since I was little, it's not, yes, of course, it's always about saving the world, right? But it's like one action at a time. It's like one action at a time. And it just creates such a sense of peace in a way too for me. It is really, truly therapeutic in a way to like watch some of these movies or to read some of the comics, because it just like gives that sense of hope.
Absolutely. And so there's something that I want to touch on real quick. So Marvel nerdism aside, like the real life piece of this is something that you touched on that I get goosebumps when I think about this.
Dude, I've been in the chills the whole time right now, dude. Yeah.
It's this idea that you're talking about, that hurt people hurt people. So if you are a hurt person, you are inevitably hurting people with that toxicity, that negativity, that piece that hasn't been put into the puzzle of completion. And for me, it comes down to, we were talking about responsibility. Whether it's a lack of awareness, you don't even realize you're hurt in a specific area, whether you realize it and you just haven't put in the work. This is one of my biggest things, that it may not be your fault that you're hurt in the way you are. Maybe it was the way you were raised by your parents. Maybe it was the way kids treated you in school. Maybe it was something that happened, just like a crazy random experience that no one could ever anticipate. I can fully admit that it is not always the person's fault. Actually, I would argue more often than not, it's not the person's fault, but it is absolutely 100% your responsibility to work as hard as you can to ascend or progress and shed off those hurts, right? Like those hurting aspects of who you are, because as the more of that you shed, the less likely you are to affect someone else in that similar way. And
yeah,
you just feel lighter. You feel, I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, I spend most of my time at work laughing, telling jokes, dancing, and I still have a lot of that hurt. I still have a lot of those things to work through, but those big ones, those deep rooted fundamental ones, I've worked very hard to just like dish out. And it takes a while. It's a process, as you well know. It's oftentimes months, years to really truly get it out. But when you do, you feel so light, and not just physically, although that's part of it, but mentally and emotionally, you can just let loose and have fun and enjoy this crazy thing we call life. But before you do that, you have to take that ownership and that responsibility and work on these things that can inevitably affect a lot of people in your life.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. The process to it, you and I do this all the time for our clients, is if we're looking at creating their optimum level of health, we have to look at the root word of health, which is heal. And the way that we let go of the hurt, the trauma, the dis-ease, the things that don't work, we have to heal. And it literally starts on a microcellular level. I mean, how else are you retaining that information? It's on a microcellular level, right? Literally in your neurons. So you have to be able to process all of those things in order to create macro health, which is now, okay, cool. Like, I have good functioning range of motion, right? I have a healthy relationship, right? Like, I can't be as loving or supportive as a future husband to my wife if I'm not showing up in the manner that will ultimately serve her. Because if I am holding on to all of my shit and all of the things that happened in the past, that's not only holding me back, but it's also holding her back. And quite honestly, we wouldn't even be moving forward, into marriage if that were the case, right? Like, I probably wouldn't have felt so comfortable years ago to even start dating her. But because, you put in the work, you process all of these things, you end up evolving, you end up ascending, like you said. I thought it was very interesting when you said that you feel lighter. Quite honestly, if you're problem solving, and this is for everybody listening, if you're literally problem solving, that means that it requires more energy. That means that you are literally creating new synapses, new neurons are starting to fire. That's all electricity. It's all light. You are literally becoming lighter by processing these things, guys. So it's not that you feel lighter and like you're floating around. It's that literally you are becoming light. When we talk about like enlightenment, what do you think that actually is, right? We're creating new moments, new connections of light. We're just connecting those neurons, those signals, those synapses to create a desired result moving forward.
Perfectly said, my friend. All right.
Thank
So
you, sir.
we're going to start to wrap this up, but real
really?
quick, I just want to,
man, we could go on for hours, I'm sure.
I'm telling you, there are a couple of people who I am 100% locked in to have back. You are absolutely on that list. We need to go round 2.
Do we get a sequel?
Round
is this like
3,
Spider-Man?
I don't know, however many it takes. But before we wrap up, I love your content. That's the reason I reached out. You know that, but there are a lot of people who, I mean, anyone listening, you just heard him talk. He has a lot of value to add. So for people who do want to follow you on social media, connect with you, see what you're doing, any outlet that you want to give them to follow or connect, if you just want to let them know, and then I'll put it in the comment section as well.
Yeah, right on. So you can follow me on Instagram at Vincent_Dangerfield. That is really my name, guys. Some people think I make up my name. I'm like, no, that is my real family name. Thank you. On Facebook, Coach Vinnie Dangerfield, a little less formal. And then on LinkedIn, same thing, Vinnie Dangerfield. And if you want to even shoot me an email, vdangerfield@lt.life.
There it is, folks. Hit him up and definitely follow him, because seriously, I can't get over how amazing your verbiage is. And anyone who's made it to this point has heard all of it. So give this man a follow. He has so much to add. He wants to help. That is one of the main reasons I absolutely loved having him on here. Is there are certain people I think who know a lot, who put on the facade of helping to make money. It's very obvious that your driving force is setting that example and helping as many other people as you can. So I want to thank you for that. That is phenomenal energy to be putting out there. But I've got one last question. Think you're ready for it?
All right.
So for you right now in your life, what is the next step in you pursuing your best self?
So shifting from playing small to playing big.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
So there's always another level, right? And, kudos to you, sir, for 53 episodes.
This will be 53.
It's amazing, man. Right. And so I look back and there's definitely opportunities that either A, I haven't taken, or B, that I've missed, or that I'm like playing small around, And so for me to reference one of my mentors, he talks about his mission is to inspire 1,000 people, to inspire 1,000 people, to inspire 1,000 people to live a happier, healthier, loving life, which is 1 billion people when you do the math. 1 out of 8 billion people is 16%. To hit critical mass, meaning that in order to create momentum, to create a ascending response, basically a domino effect, we have to achieve anywhere from 12 to 22%, where it just becomes automatic, right? 16% of the world living a happier, healthier, loving life. You sure as hell bet that there's going to be a transformation, right? Like the healing, the health that we will all experience naturally now when we're operating on a new vibration, it would be, I can't even imagine it, right? Because it's just going to be so new. However, we have to have that bigger vision. And so if I am playing bigger, if you're playing bigger, if we're truly inspiring 1,000 people right now to inspire another 1,000, we will get to that billion. But we have to play as big as possible.
That right there is my whole focus for the year. So we are definitely going to have to go around too. But seriously, man, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate everything that you're doing. The fact that the knowledge base that you have and just the way that you explain things, you're going to have no problem hitting that 1,000. But we'll start with however many we touch with this, this podcast. But
share this episode, y'all.
You heard it, with as many people as possible. It's not just me saying it now. You've heard me say that a bunch. Now we've got other people in on it. But seriously, man, thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing, everything that you're becoming. I don't know how often you hear that, but you need to hear it one more time. So much appreciated.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Thanks so much for being with me and sharing your time, man.
Of course. And for everyone listening, you already know my spiel, but I have so much gratitude and so much just light inside of me, knowing that there are people out there who devote their time. I mean, almost an hour to learning from people who are educated, hearing their insights, hearing their suggestions, their advice. I am so humbled to know that even if one person listens to this, they are going to be far better off. So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for always tuning in, for supporting, and we look forward to seeing you next time.